deeper than it looks like from there. And also, I have to make these things for people like me. Just to do a slight adjustment. Is it here? Yeah, okay. Here you go. Okay. I did learn something. Yeah, okay, so, yeah, I was gonna, like, kind of get my hair cut and have a shave and stuff, but I didn't actually, I was gonna dress up for you guys, but I didn't actually have time to do that, because I don't know how many of you might know of me or know of my work or whatever, but I'm a West London writer. I'll admit that now. I'm a West London writer. Have been my whole life and everything, but I'm actually moving to East London. Okay, so I was looking at the place I'm moving to. Wow, people didn't seem that happy. You should have stayed in West London. But I'm actually moving. I was looking at a house today, so hence I didn't have time to get myself all dolled up and everything for you guys. So apologies. But I am moving to East London, and this is my first East London reading, so I'm really excited about being here, not just tonight, but forever. But yeah, no, I'm looking forward to it. So I'm going to read from the Gospel according to Katy, which comes out in February, and as you heard, it's my 7th book, and it's about a woman whose child was abducted 20 years ago. So, yeah, her child was abducted 20 years ago, and since then, she's kind of got her life together, and she's, I mean, she's divorced from her husband, she's had a real harrowing time, but she's got her life together. She teaches an after-school club in Labra Grove. She's moved into a council flat. She sold the big house she used to have with her partner, moved into a council flat, and she's teaching at-risk kids on this council estate. And then 20 years pass, like I say, she's getting herself together, and then this young guy, starts stalking her. Everywhere she goes, she turns around and this guy is there. And eventually, he manages to get through the security gate and door and knock on her front door, and he says, "I am Malachi. I'm your son," basically, after 20 years. And she starts to try and rebuild their relationship. So that's essentially what the book is about. But also, there's all sorts of, you know, it's an allegory for a lot of things. Well, for 2 things actually. But it's an allegory anyway. And I think one of the thematic kind of undercurrents in this book comes out through her dreams actually. So she keeps having these reoccurring dreams, and they're dreams of Barbados. And the dreams of, you know, an ancestral past that she believes she might have had. There's already been one dream at this point in the book, and then I'm going to read you the second dream that she has. I have to say, this is not a comedy. As you might have guessed from the little blurb I read, this is not a comedy. But hopefully, you know, I like to try and find, you know, beauty in most things. So whether it's comedy, or, you know, or whether it's tragedy, I try and find the beauty in both of those things. So hopefully you'll be able to see that in this piece as well, even though it's quite intense. Okay, so this is the Gospel according to Katy. Screams first. A familiar rustle like whispering school children, a crackle on the edge of my hearing. Harsh breath right beside me. Then something penetrated oily gloom, tiny sparks of firefly lights, and I could see I was running. Dream sister beside me, hair flat against her temples as though glued to both sides, skin glistening from sweat and the glow of the lights which were everywhere. "Come now," she said, throat dry, and I was entranced by the sound of the words until she tugged my wrist hard enough to feel pain burst in my shoulder. I wanted to snatch my hand away, did that. And then the screams became louder and something registered, and before I could come to terms with what I was hearing, my dream sister was gone, swallowed by bushes that chanted a surreptitious chorus in harmony with the voice of the wind. I followed, darting into foliage, ignoring sharp needles of leaves on my arms and legs, ignoring the heat and screams and the rush of air and noise, just running, chasing without seeing, leaping and ducking, head low, forehead pointed in the direction of her noisy progress. It went on that way. The screaming from behind us, the crackle and pops, the sounds of our breathing, the crash of breaking leaves, the thump of my heart, and the desperate thought that if I lost my dream sister, I would lose myself. when I stumbled into a clearing. No, not even stumbled. I actually fell, scraping my knees on soft earth, rum dark, bald of grass. I saw the rear of my dream sister's knees, a curved indent lit by moonlight, saw her torn skirt and blouse, black streaks of grime on her clothes, before I realized she was looking up, head tilted, as though drinking from an oversized jug. I tracked her sight, on hands and knees, wondering what she was looking at. It was a cane. They were huge, more like bamboo than sugar cane, as round as a tall man's thigh, chattering as they clashed in the wind. The chatter rose louder, died. My dream sister spun, faced me, eyes like inverted night sky, moon white on the outside, pitch black in the center. "I'm coming," she whispered. I wanted to tell her not to talk that way. Mama wouldn't allow it, and then I heard them, and I turned. The night sky behind us was ablaze. Orange light, thick smoke, the crackling louder now, more like a roar, and that heat wasn't just the normal heat of night. It was a fire, it was howling, and it came from our house. I couldn't see over the bushes and trees, but instinct told me it was our house. The house was on fire because Papa had done something to McIntyre. I recalled screaming, the voice, my mother's. I pictured things being done, too raw for a child's knowledge, but I wasn't I? I wasn't, was I? I was seeing through a child's eyes, but my mind still belonged to me, didn't it? It felt that way as I heard her shriek inside my head, saw her surrounded by men holding gas lamps and torches and dogs, watching one of their number sit between her legs, rip off clothes, fight her beating hands, laugh, display rotten teeth. And the dogs barked and pulled at leashes, growled and strained their noses at the dark grass, the bush, in the direction of us. Echoing barks rolled across the night sky. She was right. They had caught our scent, and they were coming. "You hear them?" she said, poised on toes, eyes darting. I nodded. Then there we go. Pushing aside the cane was like pushing through the legs of adults. The stalks were reluctant, resistant, holding ground. It was harder work than the bush, and it seemed as though the fire was coming closer. It grew hotter by the second, and the barking got louder from every angle, and my dream sister seemed to grow disoriented as she began to stop, hesitate, and I knew we couldn't go on for long. Sometimes I would look up, and the highest knots of cane were somehow familiar. They seemed to have thin, pinched faces, like the whittled grimace of weathered African masks. And when I noticed that, I felt like they had seen me too, like they were trying to tell me something. I stepped closer, and it was then that I heard it, a soft language, low and deep, and I saw bitter smiles above. I elbowed past my dream sister when the feeling came. I laughed and took her hand, and then I was tugging her through the chatter of wood as she flailed and tried to keep up. I ran, head tilted upwards, looking into the faces of the cave, not at the ground, not behind me where I could hear the dogs more clearly, but her dark seed eyes and pursed lips, which led towards me as I ran, told me which way to turn in deep, melodious African voices, which led me further into the field, parted to allow me access, chattered in approval when I passed. My dream sister faltered. She looked at the cave, mouth open. She snatched her hand away. She looked at me and shook her head. I wanted to call out, but the dogs came. Huge, powerful beasts, sand-coloured fur, scarred backs, foaming with sweat, teeth reflecting moonlight. They leapt on her, she screamed, went down. I ran. I could hear the dogs tear at her, rip meat from bone, and her screams which turned my sweat cold, caused steam to pour from my body. My dream sister had bought me time. The cane parted before I even got to them, closed behind me, and it was easy to see where to go. It was just a case of following an open path into blackness. I ran into something solid, would give, bounced forwards and back. Struggled. I was stuck, seemingly by the body. Arms, legs, torso. I couldn't move. Only my head had escaped. I could turn right, left, up. If I were to look down, I would be stuck that way, attached by the forehead to whatever had caught me. I strained my chin upwards, my head back, to see. The web was made of a gossamer-like material, but thicker, more transparent, oversized glass noodles. Milk white, it hung between two stalks of cane, the biggest yet, solitary centuries as thick as branchless oaks. It stretched across the path in the centre of a crossroads. The earth beneath me was iron red. Coming from the right or left, I might have bumped into pain, but from the direction I'd been running, there was no way around, no way to see it was there. I had seen that structure before. Not in the park, or a fairy tale, but inside the head of a human being. It was the arachnoid mater, the spider mother, that transparent guardian of the brain. I struggled harder as I heard the barking resume. The web was sticky, its grip almost painful, and it felt as though I would risk tearing my skin to break free. I looked at the path, the crossroads, to see if anything else could help, and I noticed the other thing, a dance of reflected fire and moonlight further along the path, 2 equal rows of light. The lights rose and fell in slow motion. There was no sound apart from the constant voice of the fire, the sharp bark of the dogs. Fear seeped into me. For there to be a web, something must have spun it. For the web to be that huge, something huge must have created it. I started to gasp, wondered if the cane had misled me. When I looked at the sentinels, their knotted faces were impassive, staring straight ahead, like any soldier would. I thought I saw vague movement, a twitch in the brow, a hardening of features. It was difficult to tell. The barks were louder, almost upon me. I struggled as much as I dared without hurting myself. Concluded I might have to if I was to escape. The lights began to grow obvious, not exactly bigger, but clearer. The beast came into view. Matted, sticky fur, a smell of wet clothes, a rumble of breathing that made me tremble. Long black fur at the maw, overhanging fangs like shortened cane stalks. The creature ambled from the protection of the shadows into the light of the natural clearing formed by the crossroads. I screamed as her eyes turned towards me, and the barking grew louder, and the spider got as close as the sentinel to my right, within reaching distance, and the smell was overpowering, nauseating. I retched as she leant back on 4 legs. I closed my eyes and tried not to think about the pain. There was a rush of something next to me, and I jumped, shuddered a cry, heard the bark of the dog become a whine, a howl, and my back was struck by hot liquid, and soon the dogs were quiet, all of them, and there was nothing but wind and fire. Even the insects of night fell into silence. The snuffle of the beast, crunch of bones, earth scraping against flesh. I assumed the bodies were being dragged. I was shivering, cold even though the heat was unbearable. The spider returned, body radiating warmth I could feel, and I tensed, but it moved before I even trembled. She walked, spinnerets dangling like teeth, back into the overhanging shadow of the cane. She stopped, turned until all 8 eyes faced me. I hung in her web, arms and legs outstretched, static as a portrait, and she stayed in place, not moving, not eating, breathing soft and shallow, watching me. Thank you. I'm a really bad capitalist, right? So I do have copies of these for sale, and that's all I'm going to say on the matter. Because I hate this because it's a bit embarrassing. But they are $7.99, so please come and see me if you'd like one. Thank you very much.